One Nation leader Pauline Hanson's with us. Pauline, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? $272 million of unpaid Medicare rebates. And we're all talking about bulk billing, etc. at the moment, but that's $270 million of our money that the government's just hanging on to.
I had no idea about it. I know that we go in debt, not debt, but Medicare is going back about $3 billion a year. That's the fraud that's also happening with it. So it's one hell of a mess. It needs a complete overhaul with the Medicare and needs to see who is actually making claims on it. I think it needs a full investigation into it.
Indeed. Now, you would have heard our previous caller, Hazan, who was taking a pot shot at South Australian Premier Peter Malinauskas. His comments that we were talking about were largely directed at you and Corey Bernardi, the leader of One Nation in South Australia. I want you to clarify for this, because the narrative is out there again. One Nation is anti-immigration.
Never have been. I've always said I'm not opposed to immigration, but I am opposed to mass migration. And you have to do it in a managed way. When you get to a stage in Australia, people don't have a house to live in or can't afford the rent to get a house, we're in dire straits. So the government has used immigration to prop up its GDP. It's a stupid way of doing it. It's a Ponzi scheme. So if you've got to keep bringing in people, because the population is getting older, so you need these people to be working, paying tax, but are they working? So a lot of the people they said we're bringing in are skilled migrants. That's not the case at all. They're not bringing in those skilled migrants.
The skilled shortage kind of is testament to that.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And it's supposed to be on construction industries to bring them in. But 1 year there, they only brought in, and 740,000 people they brought in, only 1,800 were in the construction industry. So if you look at the figures, they're not. They're bringing in accountants and other engineers and different ones, but not so much in the construction industry. And a lot of people that are getting into the country, and I spoke to one fellow, he said this fellow Vietnamese was laying the carpet, and he said, listen, mate, you don't lay it like that across the doorway. And he said, where'd you do your trade? He said, here, I do. He said, I learned on YouTube. Yeah. So what we're doing is we're bringing the people who don't have the actual skills and knowledge of it, and they're going to get into work here, probably teaching young ones coming through if they work for a business and employs apprentices. Our trade levels are going to go down. They're going to be terrible if this is going on.
Well, some would say they already are. Now, the other immigration issue that's big at the moment is these so-called ISIS brides. Look, I commend the Coalition for their legislation that they want to put before the Parliament when it returns in March to try and block the entry of these the wives of these ISIS fighters. The government, the lack of transparency about what is actually happening here is extraordinary. We've now had the New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, come out and say, well, I've been talking to the federal government about this for months.
Well, everyone's picked up on it, and you can't get a straight answer out of them. That's what people are frustrated about. People are angry, I must say really angry about bringing these people out, the ISIS brides. And their attitude is, well, listen, love, you went over there to fight. You are a terrorist yourself. Just because, they're supposedly, they're not brides. They are terrorists themselves. The warning was given. If you go over there, don't expect to come back. Why aren't we true to our word? Why don't we say, no, you can't? How do we know these people? And Burke says, oh, well, you can't deny them and they're Australian citizens. Well, you can. The exclusion of... you can give an exclusion,
but it's only a temporary thing. So what do we do at the end of that temporary exclusion?
Have they got dual citizenship? They must have been able to get into the country in the first place. Yeah. So why did they accept them? Why is it that when we have illegals in the country here, that other countries won't take them back? And unless they take them back, we can't send them back. I've known that for years, for the last 30 years, the federal police told me. He said, we can't send these people back who are illegals in the country because the country won't take them back.
Yeah, and so you can't make anybody stateless.
Why they do it and we can't?
Yeah, look, where do you think this... Because, I mean, the other thing too is, and I've seen... And, look, I grew up in Western Sydney, and I saw Di Lee talking about this, the member for Fowler, and, I know her electorate better than most because I was a candidate for that electorate many years ago. But the reality is that there are Middle Eastern Australians living in those communities that are terrified of these ISIS people, and that's where we're going to put them.
Yes, and even one of their fathers said he doesn't want her back.
Yeah.
And that's what one father actually said. So, Stephen, why do we allow the governments to get away with this. There's not enough accountability from our governments, and they just do whatever they want to do, regardless of what the people want. And, there has to be some accountability. I'd like to set up a independent department that if these politicians make their promises, overspend, waste the money, then they must be accountable. And if they are not, then you lose your jobs. If you're in the real world as CEO of a company and you destroy and lose billions of dollars, you'd lose your job.
Yeah.
Why do we keep these politicians on? You can't kick them out of government, but you can kick them out of the portfolio. They're no longer a minister. Why don't we have more accountability?
Yeah, well, I think most people would agree with you, Pauline. Whether I don't know what the legalities around that and how what the mechanisms are, but I think the principle is pretty much right. So, will you support the coalition on this legislation they put forward?
Of course, I'll support it on the legislation. We'll have a look at it closer next week when we go into Parliament. But they haven't picked up the phone to talk to me about it, so they haven't spoken to me about it. So. Yes, we will investigate it by all means, but I'm hearing rumblings people think it may not be constitutional. I can't see from that point, just briefly looking at it. So I think it would be a good move. But
I think that's the difficulty here, isn't it? Is because of that citizenship issue, that's always going to be the stumbling block.
It is with it, but you need to have a look at the Constitution, and I have to look at the wording with it closer to understand it fully. Just briefly looking at it, when I heard it released, I didn't think it was unconstitutional. So people might be just, clasping at straws with it, but I couldn't see an issue with it. But I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but pretty much I do normally get it pretty right. Just
quickly, before I let you go, Angus Taylor's first week, his new shadow ministry, what do you make of it, and do you see this as an opposition that you can work with more meaningfully than you might have previously?
Most definitely. I think he's come out of the blocks a lot better than what Susan Lee did. He was prepared to actually bring out policies. A lot of it is motherhood statements, but the principle is there, and I think that's what the country needs.
Yeah, and that's going to be the key, putting the meat on the bones of those principles as they get
Correct.
Closer to the election. Pauline, great to talk to you. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, bye.
Pauline Hanson, leader of One Nation.
Authorised by Pauline Hanson, 12 Baronia Road, Brisbane.